did try that, but it's about as close as we can.
So that he's in the
Yeah, he's just, sorry?
So that he's in that camera there too.
Yeah, he's there for doing that as well. It's telling me low battery.
Forget that. So that is it.
You want to start it?
Yeah, that's right. Welcome everybody to our digital Sunday service. Yeah, little nice pianos, especially piano that's really coming from the heart, spontaneous. You can just feel the spontaneity, the spaciousness in that piano music. Really helps to cultivate the spaciousness in the mind. Sense of just being able to relax, and it's like a reminder of how we're meant to live all the time in this deep stillness and spaciousness and inner listening. It's also very, very attentive. It's like a highly attentive state. It's being very, very, like when you're listening to a piece of music that you feel is really touching you, and you feel your mind noticing every little nuance of it. And that's how we can be all the time with whether there's music playing or not, just with the whole universe, with the whole world around us, just being highly attentive to all the little nuances. Reminds me of that scene in the movie August Rush, where he starts to hear he's in like the middle of like New York City with cars honking and people yelling and all kinds of loud noises that we wouldn't think of as being music, but he is in this state of mind where he's just hearing it all as this orchestra, and he starts to, even in the middle of the street, he starts to like move his hands to it because he can hear a rhythm, he can hear what's deeper than just the surfacey sounds that the normal human perception would only notice. So yeah, it just feels like today is another opportunity, like every day, to cultivate that and to remind ourselves of our purpose, which is really just to be happy. And yet we don't really know what happiness is. We don't really know what it means to be happy. And so the ego has invented a lot of substitutes for true happiness. And I was thinking earlier about the idea of inspiration, because I've noticed that on my spiritual journey, so to speak, there's been a lot of phases where I did not feel inspired about anything. Actually, I remember really soon after reading, I think it was back in 2004 maybe, when I read the book The Disappearance of the Universe, which many of you may have read. It's a good kind of opener book, or a good book to really explain the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles. And it was shortly after I read that book that I just had this experience of, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks when I found out from reading that book, when I learned the idea that this world was not created by God, and that this world was basically just a projection of the ego. And then I think it was shortly after that, or maybe around the same time, I had watched this video which was all about 9/11 and different kind of conspiracy theories that pointed out the possibility that, like, 9/11, for example, was an inside job, and it just really depressed me. I think before that I was sort of in this, I kind of suspected that something was really terribly wrong with the world, and I think everybody would agree there's something wrong with the world, but everybody usually just thinks that the problem is, out there in other people. And when I first read this or saw this video about 9/11 and started to realize, oh my God, maybe that was an inside job, then I just became depressed. It was like, oh my God, the world really is just a horrible, horrible place. And it really brought me to my knees, in a sense, where I just felt like there was no hope. There was no hope in anything. And then I forget if it was right before that or right after that when I found and read Disappearance of the Universe and started studying the Course. And there was a point when I wrote to David Hoffmeister, and I told him how I was feeling, I felt like the Course was my path, but that I didn't feel any inspiration for anything in the world anymore. I didn't want to do anything. And what does that mean? And is that okay? And he basically wrote back and told me that that's true, that you don't have to really be inspired to do anything in the world, that we don't even really know what inspiration is. Inspiration is like this, it's an idea that seems like a feeling or an emotion that comes over us, but we don't really know, we can't really discern between true inspiration and what we could call the ego's version of inspiration, which is being inspired about something, about a project, or about a goal, or even about life. I'm inspired about my life. That true inspiration is, it can't be about anything. And it can only be an experience that happens spontaneously once we've completely relinquished, in any one moment, relinquished the idea that I should be inspired about things. So I found that, I just found myself contemplating that idea this morning, and it's actually really peaceful because it's sort of like life seems to keep forcing me to get off of the timeline. Not as if I even know how to do that, but it seems to push me into an experience, into a state of mind where I can't find any inspiration in time. I can't find any inspiration in terms of linear projects or anything that I can look forward to. And so I have to just be willing to go completely empty again and again and again. And that in that emptiness, it feels actually like, to the ego it feels incredibly dark and depressing, because the ego doesn't have, it's like in that void it doesn't really have any life, it doesn't have anything to feed it. And so all it can do is just kind of shrink and disappear. But that's the experience that we have to be willing to go into 100% if we're going to discover what life is truly about, which is beyond this world. There is no life in planet Earth. There is no life in linear time. There is no joy. There's that line in the Course that I love to quote because it just always impressed me because it's so radical. How can you find joy in a joyless place except by realizing that you're not there? And so when we don't feel joy, when we don't feel inspired, it's actually a good sign. It's a sign that we're moving into the void, that that old ideas are falling away, and there can be this feeling of emptiness that, of course, the ego is going to interpret, because the ego always speaks first as emptiness or darkness or boredom or depression or just something bad is happening. And I love that other line in the Course that says, you cannot judge your advances from your retreats. And it does seem to take a lot of trust when we're not feeling good, because we don't really know what good means. When we're feeling good, that's that can actually just be a state of deception where we're feeling good about something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and not that we should kind of beat ourselves up when we're feeling happy, but to just always remember that there's a deeper happiness that we're being guided into, and that it requires that everything about this world, everything we believe, everything that we value, everything that we think makes us happy, everything that we think of as happiness or inspiration or peace or joy, that all of those ideas and concepts are being stripped away, and it's quite a shocking experience when we're going through it, especially during those moments when it feels really intense, when there's a disorientation or a feeling of just being lost. Or I've had phases even in this past year which lasted for a few days or up to a week, where I just felt like I was in darkness, and I just didn't know which way was up and which way was down, or I just didn't know anything, and I just had to let go and go, okay, maybe I'm just going to completely fail at this whole spiritual journey. And I actually had to surrender to that. I feel like I've had to surrender to that many times, the idea that I might fail at this spiritual journey. And even though intellectually I know that that's impossible in the ultimate sense, he does say that awakening, Jesus says, awakening is inevitable, and that the goal is sure. And in fact, it's already happened. We're already home in God now, and we just don't know it. But at times, it can feel like it's hopeless, and that I can't do this, and that there's just no way that I'm ever going to become enlightened. And even if I were to, the ego comes in with the idea that it's going to take a really, really, really long time. And that's a pretty depressing idea as well. So, I just feel that it's so helpful to be aware of all these little defense mechanisms, these little ways in which we get hooked into thinking that there's something wrong, and then just becoming depressed about that, when actually when things seem to be going wrong, it's actually a sign that things are going right. And it just seems to take a lot of trust to drop everything, to surrender, to be willing to just, kind of disappear in a sense. Be willing to disappear. And then in that willingness to disappear, then the spirit can actually flow back through our mind. But we keep being brought to these points where we have no choice but to disappear. We have no choice but to give everything up, to be willing to lose everything. And that's where freedom is found, the true freedom. I heard Frances say something last Friday on her show, the Out of the Blue Comes Frances Sue show, that really resonated for me. Actually, I think she said it 2 weeks ago on the show. And what it was that this idea, she hears people, she said how she hears people sometimes saying, oh, I'm surprised I'm going through this issue again because I thought I was over that. Whether it's some kind of maybe jealousy or envy or just some kind of competition thoughts, or where we will say to ourselves, God, I thought I was over that, and here I am experiencing it again. And what Frances pointed out was that what surprised her what was surprising her when she would hear people say those kinds of things was that it was as if there was a belief underneath it which she actually found to be incredible, which I think doesn't seem incredible to our normal ego, but it's actually incredible to the spirit. The idea that there's something wrong with that you're going through an issue again. as if you should have your life under control, as if you shouldn't be going through darkness. And it's funny because that's really actually what our so-called life on earth is for. The only positive purpose of this life is to go through the darkness so that we can wake up in the light. There's not really any other purpose that we can say, from A Course in Miracles perspective, is helpful. It's certainly not about becoming a better person. It's not about becoming a more spiritual person. It's not about attaining anything. It's not about becoming successful in the world, of course. It's not about becoming anything. It's more like an unbecoming. It's like an undoing of all that we think we have become. It's going in. It's a reversal of that, and that reversal feels like going through the darkness, and that's the only way to awaken. And so I just really loved what she said about that, and how there's this assumption. Is there Kleenex around here? Someone can grab one. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually a very arrogant assumption when we say, "Oh, I should be over this by now. I shouldn't have to go through this again." It's because it assumes that I personally should be my own therapist, and I should have done a better job, and I should have already figured this out by now. And we just have no clue. Like, we don't have any idea what's really going on under the surface. We tend to judge situations and issues that come up in our life just on in a very superficial way, where we think, oh, I'm jealous again in this relationship, and I thought I was over that. I thought I got over that from my last relationship. But the jealousy is really this deep, unconscious jealousy towards God, that God is the creator and I'm the creation. And so that's always where the jealousy comes from. And we could say that about any issue, whether it's jealousy or competition or fear or guilt or shame or unworthiness. All of it is really about our relationship with God. That's where that's the only place that our issues exist. And yet they seem to get played out over time in form, and really they're all the same issue. So we could actually say that we're not going to be over any specific issues until we're over the only issue, the one issue, the belief that we actually could have separated from God. That until the atonement has been accepted 100% and the mind has just been restored to its pristine state 100%, and the world is just completely seen as false, until that's become a permanent state, then we will continue to have all kinds of various issues that seem specific, and it's impossible to think you've gotten over one and still have other issues that you haven't gotten over. So I think that's helpful, at least I feel like that's helpful for me, because then I don't beat myself up when I start experiencing some issue, as if I should have gotten over that before. It's like, no, it's good that this is coming up. Actually, it's really critical that I'm gentle with myself about it, and that I give full permission for it to just arise, and to fully arise, so that it can be released. It won't be healed if I'm sitting there judging it and saying I shouldn't be having this issue. That's actually the way to keep it. That's the way to kind of add guilt on top of guilt, and then kind of glue them together even stronger. We have to be we have to be just very, very open and see that the purpose of our life, once again, is to go through the darkness so that we may be guided back to the light. And so when darkness comes up, it's actually a cause for a celebration. It's a cause for, oh, I'm healing. If you feel bored, if you feel just dead, anytime you feel anything, it's actually good. It's a cause for celebration. You probably won't feel like getting up and dancing, but if you can even just on some level just be like, okay, this is good. I'm going through something here, and I'm willing to just relax and let it come up, and trust that the universe will, and I say the universe, I really mean the Holy Spirit's use of the universe, will provide an opportunity for me to have another pop, where I will again experience an expansiveness, a state of mind which feels open and free and happy, and then that will just prepare me once again for the next layer of darkness that will need to be gone through again, or as well. And really, it isn't like we're ever going through the same issue. In a sense, our mind is constantly expanding, and it is like that layers of the onion metaphor, where every layer of the onion, as it gets peeled, it looks like the onion is the same onion. Maybe it's getting a little smaller, but it always looks like each layer is the same layer, but it really is getting smaller. We really are going deeper. And yeah, our mind is always expanding, and it is always going through these deeper and deeper layers of, we could say, like dark clouds that have surrounded our mind, that have been made by beliefs. And every time we're going through something difficult, it's just because some deeper core belief is being challenged. And it's good when our beliefs are being challenged, because then we have actually a chance. It sort of forces us to then question them. We seem to only have two choices when we feel upset. We can either push our brother away from us, when there's a difference of opinion, for example, or when we're collaborating with someone, or just even if we don't seem to be directly collaborating with someone, anytime there's a conflict, it's like me against the universe, or me against you, or me against something other than myself. But there can't really be a conflict unless I have a belief about how things should go. And so in those moments, it's always pushing me to say, am I willing to be wrong about what I believe? And still speak what I need to speak. If the Spirit is giving me words to speak, it's in a sense, like what I'm thinking needs to happen might actually be truly the most helpful thing. But I can't be the one to personally make anything happen. I still have to be willing to be completely wrong and completely empty, and then let the Spirit speak through me, act through me, and basically orchestrate all the bodies for the good of the whole. And that's not something that any one person can ever do. And so conflict and stress is always a result of nothing more than trying to play God, trying to be the one who makes sure that things go the right way. And it's very stressful and very counterproductive, actually. That's why he has that line in the Course that says, "Trust not your good intentions, for they are not enough." And then he says, "But trust implicitly your willingness." Because your willingness is the only thing that's actually asked for by the Holy Spirit. There's that section called the Little Willingness, and I can't remember if it's in that section or another section where he says, "Do not attempt to add more than your willingness. For if you add more, you actually take away, it's like you take away the willingness. The willingness is the only thing that's asked of us. The willingness to to have our mind changed for us, the willingness to be healed, the willingness to be awoken, the willingness to let this body be used by the Spirit. That's the only contribution we have to make towards awakening and towards the good of the whole. And if we attempt to add anything else, like, oh, this is a good idea, I think I'll make sure that this happens, and I'll be willing, then it will actually just mess it all up. You can't really have both. You can't make a personal decision or conclusion about something and be willing at the same time. Willingness, in the sense that I'm talking about it, is a willingness to be empty, and it's 100% or not at all. That's why this course is so effective, as it keeps, in many, many different ways, it keeps reminding us that it's kind of like an all or nothing thing in every moment. It's a full 100% commitment to the holy instant, or it's nothing, basically, or it's no contribution at all. And when you're not contributing to the truth, you're actually pushing the truth away. And so even in form, if you're not following the Holy Spirit's guidance, it means you're following the ego's guidance. And there isn't like an in-between. And so it's like these ideas just are so razor sharp, and they really kind of point to something that's it's so difficult for the ego to see. But if we can just accept that it really is all or nothing. We're either driving the car forwards or it's going backwards. We're either moving towards the truth or we're moving away from the truth. We're either being helpful or we're being harmful. And it's not like we can just be in a neutral state. We're always in one mind or the other. We're either aligned with the Spirit or with the ego. Then for me, that provides a lot of motivation. Like to really see, okay, if I'm not aligned with the Spirit right now, I must be aligned with the ego. In which case, I'm a nuisance. I'm a nuisance to everybody and to the whole plan. And then again, I just have to say, okay, I'm willing to drop my agenda. I'm willing to drop my ideas about what's helpful, because I don't know, and I can't ever really know. I just can be willing and let it be shown to be moment by moment. So I felt to, at this point, just open it up and see if anyone actually here, I have a few people here with me in the Living Miracles Metaphysical Center, had any inspiration to come up and share something. Otherwise, we could open it up for questions from all of you there in your homes. And so I think I'll just pause and see if anyone wants to come up. I was thinking maybe Susan, that you could just come up and share a little bit about, we could talk a little bit about just what we've been experiencing with the house and stewarding, this idea of stewarding, and I could share a bit first and just open it up. I felt like it could be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah, my friend Susan's going to come up. Because this is a good example, I think, of willingness. You got here a few weeks ago from Mexico. You were at the Mexico community, and then you came here. And initially, you just had one or a couple primary functions here. I think you were working on the accounting. You were working on the accounting, and then helping with the Mystery School website. And then just a few days ago, the guidance came in for you to be the co-steward with me. I've been sort of overseeing the house logistics, and then suddenly it's both of us kind of collaborating on the house. And yeah, it's interesting how it's been quite a shift for me to just have a collaborator in that, and just watch my mind, and it actually just felt really relaxing, and like there's something very healing for me of kind of stepping back a little bit and trusting. And I think for you it's been probably quite an experience as well. And I just wanted to see if you had any words to share about your experience lately.
I think it's pretty fair to say that I've always been pretty shy, you could say, shy and quiet, and not one to take any kind of a leadership role or anything like that. In fact, if anything in my life, I would say I've shied away from being in the spotlight, anything like that, to be seen, to be exposed, to be. And so when I was told about this, I have to say that immediately I could feel some sense of expansion, because I was entering this new territory. I was being invited into something that was outside of my comfort zone, and that in a place where in a certain way I knew I would be stretched. I would be experimenting in my own mind with what I believe. And I don't know, where that shyness comes from or what that was about or anything like that. I just know that the Spirit seems to really want me out of that, or want me to question everything that I've thought about or what I've believed about, this character. And so there's no question that when the Spirit does call me into new things, including this, that it's a feeling of, no, I don't want to do that. There is a feeling, there can be this feeling of I don't want to do that, which in a way to me is good, because I think that's the ego actually. The ego wants to come in and say no, I don't want to do that. And so I always have to have faith. That word faith comes into my mind frequently. Like, I really have to have faith that if this is given by the Spirit, then there's something very important here that I need to look at in my mind. And that's part of the awakening. That's actually part of the expansion. So those no's, those initial no's, are actually, okay, that's the ego. Thank you very much. Thank you for speaking. And let me just continue on my steps. So it's always that kind of like, thank you for sharing. I feel, you don't want to fight with the ego and try and combat it. You just want to acknowledge it, okay, and then keep going. And so I feel like that's really been what the unraveling is for me. It's just constantly, and I think that's part of the, you have to be that willingness to, the willingness to just be open, to trust. Willingness and trust are very closely related for me. There's a willingness, but there's also a trust that goes with it. Okay, I trust you, Spirit. You have my best interests. Actually, I don't know my best interests. I don't. If I were to just listen to that no, I'd still be, cowering in the corner in a certain way. And I don't want to be cowering. I want the expansion. So it feels really good, actually. That's what's coming.
Great. That's great. Well, maybe we could open up if you want. Maybe you could stay here and we could just see. Maybe people would have questions for you even about your experience with that. And so if anyone does have a question, you can just raise your hand on the screen there, or chat something in, and or raise the virtual hand.
Candy's raised her hand.
Okay, Candy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Wonderful, beautiful things you've been sharing this experience it the other way around, in the sense that I've been noticing lately, at least that's how I am understanding it, let's put it that way, because honestly I have no clue. But the way I'm understanding it is the ego wants to say something or do something that will be people-pleasing, and yet I'm getting this strong feeling, yeah, the ego would be happy to please, but it's not good for me. You know, that's the feeling that I'm getting, and I don't know if I'm interpreting it the right way, but it's almost like a bit of assertiveness training, you could call it, in terms of, okay, you've been trying to please everybody for such a long time that you have to learn to say no for the right reasons, not because, no, I don't want this, but because, yeah, you have to let that come up, the fact that you're afraid of saying no, because, yeah, you're afraid of displeasing, which means you're afraid of any kind of retaliation, rejection, and so on and so forth. And, you know, then I can track it back basically to the fear of just, yeah, being worthless and disappearing because I'm not getting any kind of appreciation or recognition. So I had a very concrete example, which had to do with a service provider, an accountant, who forgot to let me know that the estimate they gave me was long past, so to speak, and they've been doing work for me, and according to their what they've done is worth, let's say, $1,100, and what they estimated at the beginning was only $200. And so they came back to me with an email saying, well, this is what we worked so far, but we are willing to invoice you only $500. Is this fair? And then I felt like, ooh, I have to agree, because I don't want them getting all negative about me and all of that. That's sort of the feeling that I have. And then there was this feeling also that, no, actually I don't have to agree. What should I do? So I'm still in limbo. But I left it, and I kind of just, that's what I do. Whenever I don't know, I just say, okay, I don't know. I leave things and let them stand, sleep over it until I get some kind of inspiration that feels better, so to speak. And for me, inspiration, it's not that I feel, wow, ecstatic about it. It's more, going back to what you were saying, Erik, at the beginning, it's more, I get this thought, yeah, that feels right. I'm not wow about it, but it feels right. That's sort of the feeling. And the thought said, no, you respond in a very polite and respectful way that this is what they estimated, and they promised in that estimate that they would get back to me if I should have to pay more. So that was the agreement. And I responded in that way, and actually it felt okay to respond that way. But I'm back in the limbo state where I feel like, oh my God, they're going to be angry at me, and oh my Lord, tax season is now, and what are they going to do with my taxes? So I'm totally in the ego feeling right now. And yeah, so everything that you've been sharing up until now, both of you, Erik and Susan, it totally speaks to that specific incident, not just, but totally to that. And getting to the question, how do you get over that situation where you're feeling like, oh God, I'm in such dread of their reaction because I haven't heard back from them, you know, and just getting over that and saying, because intellectually I'm just saying, okay, it's past, you know, all the things that we've learned, it's the past, and like the lesson I'm doing today, 198, it's my judgment is the only thing that could hurt me, and my own forgiveness is what can set me free. So that's my lesson for today, and I'm trying to apply it, but boy, this feeling of fear is so intense around the subject, and I may be smiling, but inside it feels like, oh my God, okay, I can hardly breathe. That's how intense that fear is, and as I share it, I'm noticing, whoa, it's really more than seems so intense. I have a big problem just sitting there and letting things come up. I must say that. I have a very big problem with that. And so it's easier when someone's there, but I live on my own, so I'm alone a lot. So if you could share something that would help, that would be wonderful.
Do you have anything, Karen? Well, the only thing that comes to my mind is that when we do make a decision with the Spirit, like you tuned in and you really prayed and then you were given an answer and you followed through, then we can expect that the ego is going to freak out. What? You didn't listen to me? Yeah, that's what's underneath all the fear. It's, you didn't listen to me. Like, I thought I was your friend. And we're basically withdrawing our investment in the ego every time we don't follow its guidance and we follow the Spirit's guidance instead. And the fear comes up, and yeah, it is intense. It can be really intense. Sometimes I've had days when I just was like shaking in bed with like something, like I just took some big step, or even just what seems to be a little email. I would send an email to someone really saying how I felt, and then I would just shake with fear afterward. I'd be very, very terrified of the response. And yeah, I think in those moments what I would find helpful was to just really start to pray, like actually have a conversation in my mind with Jesus or with the Holy Spirit, and just say, okay, you got to help me out here. I'm freaking out. Like, can you please provide me some assurance that everything's going to be okay? And sometimes I would journal or type journal, and if that would help to facilitate the conversation, and just ask questions like, okay, I'm really afraid, as if I'm there with my therapist, okay, I'm really afraid right now. I did this thing that I think you told me to do, and now I'm really afraid. Can you, what have you say? What would you say to me? And then just listen, and just write whatever comes back to you. It's like you'll start to hear what Jesus would say, or what Jesus is saying to you now, and write it down. And then type your next question, and I would have these long pages of journaling that would just, and I would bring up everything. I would say, okay, but what about this? Like, what if this happens? And what about if that happens? Like, all the little specifics that come up as a fear, I would expose them all and say, help me, I'm open, I want an answer, I really want to know that I'm going to be taken care of. And usually by the end of those little sessions I would have, those little therapy sessions, I would feel calm again, and I would just, it would just come down to just trust, everything's going to be okay. But it wasn't like, I wasn't ready to hear that at the beginning, like just trust. I had to first expose all my thoughts and actually hear some very practical insights about it from the Spirit. And I feel like anybody can do that. That's what we have to do to get clear. We have to expose our fears and ask for the answers.
Yeah. That's extremely helpful, and just, yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but because everybody speaks of journaling, right? Everybody tells you, well, journal about it. I don't know why, but there's such a resistance to journaling by hand, in my case. But now that you said, I would just type the question and then type whatever response came, and it's like, yeah, I can do that. I like typing.
Right, yeah.
Less resistance to actually doing it. It's funny. It's the same exercise, but you're just changing the medium, so to speak.
Yeah.
And clearly the resistance comes from the ego. Oh, it takes too long to write, and all that blah, blah, blah that comes, right? And if somebody sees it, then what are they going to say? And all these terrible thoughts. But if I type it, and then when I'm done, I just delete it.
Yeah.
It's an issue, right?
Right.
So, wow, thank you so much, Eric. It's extremely helpful, and I really, really, really enjoy listening to your service. When I'm not online, I try to connect and look at the recording, because extremely helpful, very, very helpful, and what you shared, Susan, also. So
Thanks, Candy. Yeah, that's probably what I love about having to say no too. She said at the beginning, like having to be assertive and sometimes people say that, oh, saying no isn't very spiritual. Like only the spirit would only say yes, 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 yes. And in attitude, it is true that the spirit is just always welcoming. Like the spirit is never pushing anything away. But in terms of form and what words come out, both the words yes and the word no in form can be equally used by the spirit or by the ego. They're neutral words and neutral responses. And I think that was a perfect example. If there was an agreement with a contractor of some kind, and they broke the agreement, and then they say, "Is that okay that I broke the agreement?" It's perfect. It's actually very helpful to say no. That doesn't feel helpful, and I'd like us to stick to the agreement that was. Especially when you really, I think we really have to feel that the agreement was given by spirit. That when two minds agree and there's a feeling of peace around that agreement, then we can trust that was given by spirit, and that can be just like a focal point or something to remember.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes to mind is that we're never responsible for the outcome. So if I feel like I feel a strong no in my heart that I need to say this, or that this just isn't working, or we need to talk about this and honor the contract, or whatever it is, that my only willingness is to say that, and that the response, or the outcome, you could say, is going to be what it's going to be. And that typically the spirit will reveal what my next step is at that point. So in a way, there's this unhinging or letting go or unhooking from any expectation around how the others should respond, they should react, how they So there's that's part of the healing too. But we don't get to even see those expectations until we've stepped into that, okay, no, or this isn't working, or whatever. And so it's a beautiful sort of revealing that seems to happen with each step, and it's just the willingness to follow.
Yeah, it's truly loving, actually. When we are guided to say no, it seems like a rejection, but it's a rejection of the ego. And the rejection of the ego feels harsh in our mind when we still are identified with the ego, because we think the ego is real and it seems to have real feelings that can get hurt. That's how we see the ego as people. And so that's why in our community we have this guideline, this suggestion of practicing no people-pleasing. Because we see the ego as people, and we think that we can actually hurt their feelings, like we can hurt the ego's feelings. But we just have to see it from a larger perspective, that when we say no to the ego, then we're saying yes to the spirit. We're saying yes to the true self. And that everyone deep down wants that. The ego is always going to come up and rage when we say no to it. But we have to be willing to face that anger. It's really our own self-hatred that we're facing. Every time we say no to the ego, we have to face whatever reaction comes from that. And through that, we gradually learn that it's okay, that we can handle it. We can handle the rejection. We can handle really facing that self-hatred. It's not going to kill us. In fact, it's going to dissolve away our own ego and help us be happy, help us remember. I was just thinking of Jesus, even in the Bible, there's that section where he said, that that scene in the Bible where I think it's John or Peter says, "No, we can't go to Jerusalem, because if we go to Jerusalem, they're going to kill you." And Jesus says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," which is like a pretty extreme way of saying no. He's basically saying, like, leave, like, no ego, I'm not going to listen to you. Get behind me, you ego. You know, I'm gonna go where my Father has called me to go. He didn't care. He knew he had to face all the people that wanted to kill him. That actually that was going to be truly healing for the whole world. So, yeah, when we say no, we're actually being very integrous if we're guided to say no.
Erik, I just feel to mention this interesting synchronicity that Suzanne, there was a little bit of thanks to Candy for her sharing, and then Suzanne posted this little thing. Jesus said, "Satan, get thee behind me." So 3 minutes
That's funny. Suzanne just posted the same thing. Get thee behind me, Satan. That's great.
One line.
Yep, one line. We're all tuning in here. Well, we just have a few minutes till the hour, and I did want to mention that one thing that Susan and I have been working on a lot with Lisa as well is this new mystery school. And it's just been this idea that's been dropping in over the past several weeks of offering a 30-day program, which would be a little bit different style. For, like, you know, in the past we've invited people to retreats, we've invited people to devotional retreats, and, you know, gatherings and so forth, and then we've also invited people to come and to live here in community with us for periods of time. And what's just come in now is this idea of offering a 30-day mystery school, which really is about going into the mystery. It's not, God isn't really a mystery, God is actually the known, but to the ego mind it feels like we're going into this mystery. And that we're going to be offering classes and courses during that 30-day program. It'd be like an intensive program where we really use the time kind of in a very school-like way, where we have we're going to even be bringing in other teachers from outside and going on field trips and doing practical exercises and offering lectures and classes and music and lots of different things for a 30-day program that would be basically giving you tools that you could then bring back home with you. And so we've been working on a website, and our first one is scheduled. Actually, it's going to be both here and at the monastery. We have a monastery up a couple hours from here, Living Miracles Monastery. It's going to start July 1st and go to July 30th. And we're still working out the details. There's going to be a tuition for it. And, you know, there's going to be all kinds of materials that we're going to be offering as well as part of it. But basically, if you're interested, you can go to our website, which is still under construction, but it has a contact email address there. And I think Charles can maybe type it in. It's nondualityonline.com. So if you are interested in the mystery school, and this is like going to be like our summer 2016 program, which will be, again, 30 days in July. And then we'll have a fall program, which will be October 1st to October 30th. And we're going to keep doing them every 3 months for these 30-day programs. So, if that's something that feels of interest to you, then nondualityonline.com is the website, and there's an email address listed there that you can write to us for more information.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
we're having a lot of fun.
Mystery school. You want us to do a mystery school? Okay, we'll do a mystery school. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And so we've actually been in the mystery ourselves about what it's going to look like, and every day we're like tuning in, like what's next? What's the next step? Okay, well, this here's the curriculum, and here's the teachers, and here's just different things.
Yeah.
We've just been taking the notes down ourselves.
Yeah, it's being very guided.
Yeah, it's been quite a mystery. But it's getting more crystal clear now, and it's actually planned now. It's starting July 1st, and so we're just really excited to host it and to see what's going to unfold. So thank you all for being here for our Sunday service, and we'll have another, our weekly show, Awaken the Heart, will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. I think, well, Lisa said she wasn't sure if she felt to do it, but if she doesn't do it, I think I would do it.
Okay.
So it'll happen one way or another at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time tomorrow. And so I hope to see you all then, or for one of our other upcoming shows, or maybe we'll hear from you about the Mystery School. So thank you so much. Lots of love to you. Have a great Sunday.